Hi there, boys and girls, and welcome to Storytime with Gythia, Sheila, McNallen. I chose a special story today. It is from a very old book. The book itself is called Stories of Norse Heroes from the Eddas and the Sagas, retold by E.M. Wilmot-Buxton. And what's special about this book is that it's old, even older than me, even older than your grandparents. This book was written over 100 years ago in 1909. But I like the way that Wilmot-Buxton tells the story of our gods and goddesses because they get retold in different ways. They were in a language that is what we call Old Norse, and it has been translated into English so we can read it. And when people translate it, sometimes the translations are different. And I like the way Wilmot-Buxton did this because he added a lot of details and kind of let his imagination go with him as he tells the story of Frigg, of Odin's wife Frigg, the mother of all, the mother of the gods, the mother of us. And it is called How the Queen of the Sky Gave Gifts to Men. This is the tale which the Northmen tell of Frigga, queen of the Aces. By the side of All-Father Odin, upon his high seat in Asgard, sat Frigga, his wife, the queen of the Asses. Sometimes she would be dressed in snow-white garments, bound at the waist by a golden girdle which hung a great bunch of golden keys. And the earth dwellers, gazing into the sky, would admire the great white clouds as they floated across the blue, not perceiving that these clouds were really the folds of Frigga's flowing white robe as it waved in the wind. At other times she would wear dark gray or purple garments, and then the earth dwellers made haste into their houses, for they said, "The sky is lowering today, and a storm is nigh at hand." Frigga had a palace of her own called Fensalir, or the Hall of Mists, where she spent much of her time at her wheel, spinning gold thread or weaving web after web of many colored clouds. All night long she sat at this golden wheel, and if you look at the sky on a starry night, you may chance to see it set up where the men of the south show a constellation, cluster of stars, called the girdle of Orion. Sometimes we call it the belt of Orion, Orion's belt. It's also called the belt of Frigg. Husbands and wives who had dwelt lovingly together upon earth were invited by Frigga to her hall when they died, so that they might be forever united within its hospitable walls. Isn't that a nice place to go? Frigga was especially interested in all good housewives, and she herself set an excellent example in Fensalir. When the snowflakes fell, the earth dwellers knew it was Frigga shaking her great feather bed, and when it rained, they said it was her washing day. It was she who first gave them the gift of flax, that the women upon the earth might spin and weave and bleach their linen, which is cloth, as white as the clouds of her own white robe. And this is how it came about. There once was a shepherd who lived among the mountains with his wife and children, and so very poor was he that he often found it hard to give his family enough to satisfy their hunger. But he did not grumble. He only worked the harder, and his wife, though she had scarcely any furniture and never a chance of a new dress, kept the house so clean and the old clothes so well mended that all unknown to herself she rose high in the favor of all-seeing Frigga. Frigga's watching her, sees how she takes care of her family and her home. Now one day when the shepherd had driven his few poor sheep up the mountain to pasture, a fine reindeer sprang from the rocks above him and began to leap toward the steep slope. The shepherd snatched up his crossbow and pursued the animal, thinking to himself, "Now we shall have a better meal than we have had for many a long day." Up and up leaped the reindeer, always just out of reach, and at length disappeared behind a great boulder, just as the shepherd, breathless and weary, reached the spot. No sign of the reindeer was to be seen, but on looking around the shepherd saw that he was among the snowy heights of the mountains and almost at the top of a great glacier. Presently, as he pursued in his vain search for the animal, he saw to his amazement an open door leading apparently into the heart of the glacier. A glacier is like it's frozen, a river of ice. It's on mountaintops and it's solid ice. So there's a door going into the glacier. He was a fearless man, and so without hesitation he passed boldly through the doorway and found himself standing in a marvelous cavern, a cave lit up by blazing torches which gleamed upon rich jewels hanging from the roofs and the walls. And in the midst stood a woman most fair to behold, clad in snow-white robes and surrounded by a group of lovely maidens. And who is that lady? Frigga. The shepherd's boldness gave way at this awesome sight, and he sank to his knees before the Asa, Frigga, for it was she. But Frigga bade him to be of good cheer and said, "Choose now whatsoever you would carry away with you as a remembrance of this place. Take anything you want inside my home here." The shepherd's eyes wandered over the glittering jewels on the walls and the roof, but they came back to a little bunch of blue flowers which Frigga held in her hand. They alone, they looked so homelike to him. The rest were hard and cold, and so he asked timidly that he might be given this little nosegay, this little cluster of blue flowers. Then Frigga smiled kindly upon him. "The most wise has been your choice," said she. "Take with the flowers this measure of seed and sow it into your field, and you shall grow flowers of your own. They shall bring prosperity to you and yours and your family." And so the shepherd took the flowers and the seed, and scarcely had he done so when a mighty peal of thunder, followed by the shock of an earthquake, rent the cavern, and when he had collected his senses, he found he was once more upon the mountainside. The door had closed. Frigga's home was closed to him now. And when he reached home, he told his tale. His wife scolded him roundly for not bringing home a jewel which would have made them rich forever. But when she would have thrown the flowers away, he prevented her. She didn't think the flowers had any value. Remember, that's what he chose to take, just flowers, no jewels. Next day, he sowed the seed in his field and was surprised to find how far it went. And very soon after this, the field was thick with tiny green shoots. And though his wife reproached him for wasting good ground upon useless flowers, he watched and waited in hope until the field was blue with the starry flax blooms. Just imagine looking outside your window and seeing nothing but blue flowers from flax plants, the flax flowers. Then one night, when the flowers had withered and the seed was ripe, Frigga, in her disguise of an old woman, visited the lowly hut and showed the shepherd and his astonished wife how to use the flax stalks, how to spin them into and how to weave the thread into linen or cloth like we make our clothes from. It was not long before all the dwellers in that part of the earth had heard of the wonderful material and were hurrying to the shepherd's hut to buy the bleached linen or the seed from which it was obtained. And so the shepherd and his family were soon among the richest people in the land, and the promise of Frigga was amply fulfilled. And that's the end of the story. But what's special about it is at this time of year, in February, when I'm reading this story, we have been celebrating Charming of the Plow. Now remember, he had to go take the seed and plant the seed and wait for it to grow, and then he harvested from the flowers the seeds that were left, but he also took the stalks and they pulled strands of pieces from the stems, and those they could weave them on a loom and make fabric for their clothes. Pretty amazing. But I want you to think about Charming of the Plow, because this is the time of year that we are basically preparing the soil using a plow like they used to do. We really don't, but we have one at each hearth. And the idea is that we prepare the soil, we open it up, and we put seed in it. And what we did when we were at Odenshof last weekend, we actually put in little pieces of bread with wishes on it and with things that we felt we'd already used. And so put those away, put those into the soil so that they're there and can break down and be there to nourish the plants that are going to come from it, to give them food, the things that already happened, so that new, greater things can grow. And that is what we do here at Charming of the Plough. And so this story about our beautiful All-Mother Frigga, she who is mother to the gods too, is very wise, and she gave the farmer just what he needed. A jewel would not have done anything for the family, like the seeds and the blue flowers of flax. So I hope you enjoyed this story, and pretty soon we'll do another one. Thank you for being here. Bye-bye.